Hello everybody and welcome to Toon Theory, the show that completely rips off game theory, but does it on cartoons so we shouldn't be judged. And what cartoon will we be doing today? Well, the great and classical hit, Transformers! Now, the big myth today, robots in disguise. And nope, not anymore anyway. Well, we need to start back with the 1980s. It was a great time when the Quintessons built the Cybertronians, and yeah, that was fun, but is it what actually happened? Well, there's some major problems with the whole Quintitron creating life thing. They should have had no problem bringing Optimus back because, yeah, they built him, but look at all the trouble they have, and he didn't even know if it'd work. But I guess that's possible. You can damage a computer so bad you can't get the memory back. So maybe they are only robots in disguise. Except they aren't. We have to continue into the later 1980s and early 90s for the comic book series Transformers Generation 2. In this series, we've discovered that Cybertronians were not created by the octopus people. Instead, they were created by the great goddess Primus. And he created 13 of them to begin with. And we're going to get to the obvious question later of, well, there's more than 13 now. But what do we know about the Transformer race? Well, they do have a hard exoskeleton. And it's metal, but does that mean they're robotic? Well, to answer that, we need to determine what robotic is. It has to have a brain, that is circuitry and wiring. It has to have no trace of free will. And it can't have any kind of organic systems. Do the Generation 2 Transformers fill that? Well, surprisingly, no. While they can duplicate their minds into laser prisms and floppy drives, they have absolute free will. They can change their minds. They are not pre-programmed to be one way. For example, Jetfire, while a Decepticon, created as a Decepticon, freely chose to be an Autobot. Okay, that's all nice and good. So we've got advanced robots. But that's not true either. To get to the bare bones of the subject, they got bones. And these bones are interesting. They've got a wiring system that looks very much like a muscular system. So the question remains, robotic or organic? One could be argued that they are advanced robotics. Until we get into the further series. The Beast Wars brings up the spark. The spark is the soul and the heart of a Transformer. This piece cannot be replicated. You can't put it in a lab and rebuild it. You can't take it apart. You can split it, but they're still connected, as the case with Rampage. At this point, they're not completely robotic. No one can argue that. There is at least a spark of the divine. Yeah, not a very good joke, but it's true. They have something that makes them more than robots. Now, when we get into Beast Machines, we see this even more fully when they're able to use that essence to transform. This isn't purely calling on their computer to transform them. They have to use spiritual energy to learn to transform again. So the question goes, are they an organic inside a robotic shell? Well, let's take one step further. Yeah, you know what? We're not even going to take one step. We're going all the way. Current Transformers Prime. What do we know? We know that there are organic parts. The T-Cog, the voice box, are all organics. But it's much more interesting than that. You see, everything is organic. Or at least a form of organic. I mean, it's not carbon-based, but they are composed of cells which contain CNA. Now, while we don't know what CNA is, if we take the initial cybernucleic acid, cyber is usually referred to as a silicone kind of compound. So they are silicone-based life forms. Now, I know what some people are saying, but Billy, this does not. The CNA was passed on a passing brief. That's no evidence. And even if it was, that's no evidence for further back. This is recon. No. I can prove it. With the advent of CNA, we understood cloning. We understood that Transformers use their own cybernucleic acid to clone themselves. Now, why is this big? Because we had a few clone Transformers back in the original. The entire sweeps were clones. We had in Transformers Animated the clones of Starscream. Dinobot had a few clones of himself running around. This goes as evidence that there is an organic base to every Transformer. Transformers were never robots in disguise, but they were definitely more than meets the eye. But here's where it gets interesting. If we know that CNA is their basic building blocks, and that they're living beings, what is their planet trying to do? Now why am I bringing this up? Because we realized that the Transformers had to reproduce at some time. Now, there was the Well of All Sparks, and the Matrix, and the Key to Vector Sigma. But that's not enough. Oh, no, no, no. We've got a few planets that had no access to any of these three units. We had the planet of Junk, and Velocitron, and Animaius, or Gaia, or whatever, the Beast Planet, all had no access to either of these products. So, how is their planet full of life? Well, fans, what do we know? Transformers are organic, they are alive, and their material can be duplicated. And number 4, there are fembots. Now, a lot of Transformer fans have said that fembots were designed for to better integrate into societies with females and stuff. But it's interesting that is in an alt mode. That a male Transformer doesn't transform into a female Transformer. Which would frankly make more sense. It doesn't make sense to create a whole division, a military division, for females. It just doesn't. However, we know that they were created by their god, and most gods want them to go forth and multiply. Is it not possible that boom shakalaka boom? That's right. When Optimal Primal said, "I am a descendant of Optimus Prime," he may have meant more than just being from the same mold. Instead, perhaps, just perhaps, Optimus really is the great-granddaddy of a monkey. Unlike our evolution, where our great-granddaddy was a monkey. But we've got one more thing to look at. And that's Cybertron itself. Every story, we're in the middle of a war, and the planet's depleted of energon. This is a running gimmick throughout all Transformers. Animated seems to be the exception. And with what we know about Transformers Prime now, is this all part of Cybertron's big plan? That's right. It creates a finite supply of energon, allows infinite breeding, with a supply with 3 or 4 different types of supplies for our new Transformers. Its energon suddenly dries up, war breaks out, and eventually a alternate fuel source has to be created. Whether it be Nebulonius or Synthen, this war again returns to Cybertron with the new fuel supply. And the fuel supply usually has terrible consequences. Synthen creates aggression. Nebulonius will eventually shut you down. Now with Synthen though, when you die and you have Synthen and you blow up, well, guess what? You became new planet matter. Could this be a system of Cybertronian evolution? Is Cybertron trying to become more? While Autobots and Decepticons are definitely more than meets the eye, is Cybertron more as well? Well, what have we learned today? Transformers, they're not too far removed from you or I. Remember to change that Protoform's diaper if you hook up with a Fembot. And remember, Synthen may make you crazy, but it may mean the survival of your planet. But this is all a theory. A Toon theory.